Hi everybody, Alzael here, patriarchal member 149775518, token division. So, like everyone in Gamergate, I keep hearing this incessant warbling about games needing to be more inclusive. Feminists have been repeating it over and over lately like a religious mantra, and let's be honest here, a religious mantra is exactly what it is. Said over and over until they enter a sort of zen-like state where they can convince themselves that gaming is a misogynist boys' club and no pockets on dresses is a patriarchal tool of oppression against women. It's cult speak, ultimately. That's really all it is. One thing cults are good at is using words to manipulate the masses. Now, before we get to the question asked in the video's title, let's take a moment to break down and analyze this inclusivity that they speak of. Now, I've asked this before, but how exactly can something that is mass-marketed and mass-distributed among the population throughout thousands of stores worldwide that is freely available for purchase by anyone possibly not be inclusionary? And the answer is, of course, that it can't. And therein lies the deceit. Media such as video games, comic books, videos, etc. are inclusive by their very nature. Anyone can buy them, anyone can read them, hell, anyone can make them. People write webcomics, fan comics, porn comics. There are enough online game design tutorials that I could devote an entire channel just to them. There are programs like RPG Maker to do most of the work for you, free assets, free tools, free engines. YouTube allows anyone to make a movie now. And the first game designers worked in their garages and learned to code and program from books. And not just male designers. Roberta Williams is one of the mothers of the PC gaming industry, and she was there right along the guys back in the early 80s. And what does she say about such matters? I never experienced any resentments or maltreatment by anybody in the computer industry about my gender. Never. In fact, it was the opposite. I always felt that the men in the computer industry were happy to have me around. I never felt that it was a gender thing. No, I never experienced any problem with being a female in a so-called male-dominated field. They were happy to have me. It was just really up to me to actually put myself there. If more women want to be a part of the computer industry today, they just have to do more to put themselves there. Nobody, in reality, is keeping them out of the industry. In my opinion, nobody in reality is keeping them out. In my opinion, anyway. To say that gaming or anything is non-inclusive is to say that there is something preventing someone from using or taking part in it. And clearly this cannot be so with games. There is no law saying who can or cannot play games. If you go to a game store to buy a game, they will not decline to take your money because you have lady bits. My PS3 is not specially programmed to automatically spit the disc out of the machine with a screaming alarm sound if any woman dares to turn it on and try to knock me out of the rankings on Tekken 5. Ladies, if you're hearing this, I promise you, if you play a video game, there will not be a knock at the door with a bunch of guys wearing dark suits looking to black bag you and take you away to the reconditioning facility until you learn your place. Okay. So I'm getting a bit far afield here, but you all see my point. There is not a single damn thing that stops anyone from being included in the gaming community, so they lost any rational argument the instant they tried to bring inclusivity into this. And if it's not the men in the gaming industry who are telling women that they are unwelcome, as the actual women who game and develop games keep saying, then which side is it that is constantly telling women that gaming is a hostile place that they shouldn't step into? Now, they will claim that girls and minorities don't have stories that cater to them and their interests, and that therefore this keeps them from being involved in gaming, which is why gaming is not inclusive, which is a cute twist of words and terms, but has nothing to do with inclusivity or the lack thereof. Whether games cater to the likes and eccentricities of others has nothing to do with whether they are inclusive. That's a separate claim from the one that they're making, and this is where the cult speak comes in. Using inclusivity in this incorrect manner allows them to shift the responsibility for the lack of women in gaming onto gaming culture in general, and men in specific. It isn't women's responsibilities for not getting involved in the community, it's the community's fault for keeping them out. If the community was different, then women would be lining up to join naturally. So we just have to change everything about the community and the culture, and then everything will be fine. And if women still don't want to be a part of it, well, clearly we need to change the culture some more. In other words, it's a blame game. An attempt to guilt the culture into doing what they want by framing the discussion in such a way as it makes the culture itself look like it's the one at fault, instead of the reality that anyone is welcome in the gaming community, and many women just don't choose not to include themselves. As Roberta Williams believes, it is instead the fault of others who are to blame for the actions and choices of women and minorities. It's also a good way to other and create a false dichotomy. Anyone who doesn't want to make the changes is automatically putting themselves on the side of exclusion, even though it would actually do nothing of the sort. And the brilliance of it is that it requires almost no actual effort on their part, because they've placed all of the burdens of doing the work on the gaming community and men. Women don't have to actually make games and compete for the market, because men will make the games for them so that they don't appear to be exclusionary. Or if they do make games themselves, they can make phoned-in pieces of shit virtual novels about depression and get a requisite pat on the back for being a girl who did something in the world of boys. Even though it's shit work, and the real women who actually deserve respect have been doing it 10 times better ever since the advent of gaming. If you change the community, then it won't actually be the community that everyone invested time and effort into creating, and the community that the people who created it wanted. It will be something entirely different that is hostile to the very people who created it and gave it life. Feminism is a parasite that infects the host and feeds off of it, eating away the insides of a community and a group until it becomes an empty husk of what it was. Any innovation, creativity, or fellowship replaced by laziness, narrow-minded bigotry, groupthink, and intolerance of ideas. The barbarians are not at the gate. They are well and firmly entrenched, and we allowed them in by seriously considering their bullshit narrative about women needing to be included in a community that had never excluded them in the first place, under the pretense that even though there are millions of women and minorities who play games, there are somehow not enough games that cater to this demographic. Of course, if you look at the games they themselves make, they don't make games for women or minorities either. They make shitty bargain basement pieces of a fall that are all centered around pushing their ideology. Dagger has openly stated that they see games as a way to push their message across. So has Full Macintosh and others on their side. They don't make the kinds of games that women would enjoy to play. They don't make the games with the great and fully fleshed out female characters they say they wish existed. They make shit like Depression Quest and Gone Home. The games women like to play are mostly made by those self-same evil males and eternally misogynistic women in the gaming community that are apparently the source of all the problems. Because something inclusive. Which brings up the point that this is an entirely sexist position for them to take, to say that women need to have things designed especially for them and their taste. It kind of reminds me of how feminists used to whine and bitch about Legos being too about boys and boys' interests, so Lego made a bunch of toys targeted at girls, which then caused feminists to bitch about how they were making toys specifically to appeal to gender stereotypes of girls. The non-sexist position to take would be to allow women and minorities to enjoy the content produced as the producers want it. Let the work speak for themselves and be enjoyed on their own merits, without kowtowing to anyone. Or, failing that, to make the content you want for yourself. But then there's one thing feminists have always excelled at, it's being sexist. But okay, let's humor their premise for a moment. Let's assume that they do have a legitimate point here, and ask a few very important questions about whether there should be this inclusivity among the gaming community. We'll cover that in the second part of this discussion. Feel free to leave comments below, and don't forget to click on that like button and subscribe. I'll see you later.